Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson. Today I'm going to be talking about the names of ordinary things that have the word of in it. So sometimes I think of what I think is a good lesson, and I can't think of a great title to describe it. But the other day I was asked if I wanted a spoonful of sugar in my tea. And a few weeks ago I played cards at a friend's house and he got out a deck of cards. And so I wrote down those two names of things because I thought I could make a whole lesson of little names we have for things that are actually three words, sometimes four, and they have the word of in the middle. And I just used two of them. So maybe not a great title, but I think it will be a very useful and good lesson for you. So once again, thanks for being here for this English lesson about ordinary things with the word of in the name. Scrap of paper. So do you ever have to make a note to yourself? Do you ever have to make a reminder? Sometimes you just want to write something on a scrap of paper. So a piece of paper, there's another term or name with of in it, is a whole sheet of paper. But sometimes you just take a little piece of paper. So often I will do this. I will find a scrap of paper when I know I have to bring one of my vehicles to the garage. Let's say it's Monday and I have to bring a vehicle to the garage Tuesday morning. I will tape something like this to the front door. I will find a scrap of paper. I will write a little note to myself and I will tape it to the front door. So the next morning, if I forget, then on my way out of the front door, I will see the scrap of paper that I have taped there. And that will remind me that I need to bring my car to the garage. Tank of gas. Sometimes you need to put a tank of gas in your vehicle. It's kind of a funny term, isn't it? Like my van is running out of gas. I need to get a tank of gas on the way home. So your car has a gas tank. By the way, we in Canada call it gas. I know in other places it might be called petrol or have another name. But if your fuel gauge or gas gauge is on empty, you might need to buy a tank of gas. You might need to stop at a gas station to fill up. You might need to buy a tank of gas on your way home from work or school. Hopefully you don't have to buy it on the way there. That's a little bit, if you're late and then all of a sudden you realize you need a tank of gas, that can be kind of frustrating. Roll of tape. So the other day, Jen said, when you're at the hardware store, can you get me a roll of masking tape? There are a lot of different kinds of tape, but all tape comes in a roll. I think most tape comes in a roll. A roll of masking tape, a roll of Scotch tape. So we use masking tape for a variety of things. And Jen said, hey, can you get me a roll of tape when you're at the hardware store? So again, we could just say tape, but I think it's very common to say roll of tape. Is there a roll of tape somewhere around? I need to tape a scrap of paper to the door to remind me of something. And I need to find the roll of tape because I need some tape to be able to do that. Tray of ice cubes. So we are currently in, I want to say a heat wave, but it's only 32 degrees Celsius every day, which for many of you isn't considered that hot. But for us here in my part of Canada, we have been in a bit of a heat wave. And so quite often at night, I will make a tray of ice cubes. I will get an ice cube tray. That's what I would call it when it's empty. And then I would put water in it because I want to make a tray of ice cubes. I want to make a tray of ice cubes for the next day because it's just really, really nice when you come in from outside and you're really hot to get a tray of ice cubes out of the freezer and to put some ice cubes in a glass of water and have some cool water. And then here's a pretty common one, cup of tea. And in Canada, we don't say cuppa, like the short version that they do in some English-speaking countries. But we do sometimes have a cup of tea. By the way, I just noticed something. Let's go back really quick. Notice how I say this. Scrap of paper, tank of gas, roll of tape. I actually say the of. Roll of tape? No, roll of tape. Tray of ice cubes. Cup of tea. So sometimes when I speak quickly, I use as the pronunciation for of. So cup of tea or cup of tea. And then sometimes when you have tea, you put a spoonful of sugar in that tea. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing this lesson, is because someone used the word spoonful. They said, do you want some sugar in your tea? And I said, yeah, just 1 spoonful. And I thought, I've never taught the word spoonful. So a spoonful of tea, or sorry, a spoonful of sugar, you can have. The other night, Jen asked me a question, but I had just put a spoonful of cereal in my mouth, not sugar, cereal. But yes, it's kind of it's not like an accurate measure, but it's basically, you take a spoon, and if it has that much sugar on it, you would call it a spoonful of sugar. Pack of paper. So my printer, you can't see, is over there. We don't print a lot, but I do print little phrases for my second channel, which, by the way, I'll be starting again next Wednesday. And sometimes we run out of paper, and then we have to buy a pack of paper, or a pack of paper, as I would say it quickly. This is a pack of graph paper. You can buy a pack of printer paper. You can buy a pack of photocopier paper. Printer paper and photocopier paper are the same. But yes, sometimes you need a pack of paper because you have run out. And then, of course, if you play cards, then you'll recognize this. If you play cards, you need a deck of cards in order to play it. We have a few decks of cards around the house. That's hard. I had to pluralize it there. But a standard deck of cards has 52 cards, everything from an ace to a king. Usually we take out the jokers, if you know what a card set looks like, or a deck of cards looks like. But yeah, sometimes you'll be at a friend's house and someone will say, let's play a card game. I'll go find a deck of cards and we will play Rummy, or Go Fish is a kid's game that I like to play with my kids long ago. Dollop of whipped cream. As I was planning this lesson, I thought, I want to teach the word dollop. So if you look here, there is a bowl of berries. Looks like blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, maybe some blackberries. And on top, there is some whipped cream. And we would call this a dollop of whipped cream. When you say it fast, though, it sounds like whipped cream, like a dollop of whipped cream. But you should probably say whipped. A dollop is like that amount. And a dollop looks like that. So we all often use this word when talking about whipped cream, a dollop. It's anytime you are putting something on top of something, food, and if it looks like that, it would be a dollop. So a dollop of whipped cream. Not a super common word to use, but still a fun word to say and a fun word to teach. You might be familiar with this one. If you need eggs, you go and buy a carton of eggs. You might just say a dozen eggs if that is how many eggs are in the dozen. It's pretty standard here in Canada for a carton of eggs to have 12 eggs in it, a dozen eggs. We can also buy a carton with 18 in it. But sometimes you need a lot of eggs. And in that situation, you would buy a flat of eggs. So a flat, I believe, is 2.5 dozen. Yes, I think so. I think there are 2.5 dozen eggs in a flat. What would that make it? 30 eggs? Can't do the math very quickly. But if you buy eggs and you don't need a lot, you might just buy a carton of eggs. But if you need a lot of eggs, you might buy a flat of eggs. We don't buy eggs because we have chickens, but sometimes the chickens don't lay for a little bit. And then we usually buy a carton of eggs every 3 days, or we buy a couple flats of eggs every 2 or 3 weeks. We eat a lot of eggs. So flat of eggs. Did I say flat or carton there? I think I said flat. Roll of toilet paper. So when you go to the washroom, in a lot of countries, there are different ways to do this, but here we have rolls of toilet paper. Rolls of tape, rolls of toilet paper, cups of tea, packs of paper. So I'm just giving you the plural of a lot of these. Some of you might be interested in that as well. Cartons of eggs, scraps of paper. The first word is plural. Anyways, you go to the bathroom, you need to use this. You need a roll of toilet paper. Usually it's hanging on the wall beside the toilet. Maybe you have a fancy bidet and you don't need a roll of toilet paper. But generally, in most bathrooms or washrooms, you will find a roll of toilet paper hanging by the toilet. And there is always an argument about which way the toilet paper goes. Does it unroll this way and the paper comes down away from the wall, or does it roll the other way and the toilet paper is close to the wall? I don't know. What I do know, though, is when it's hot in the summer, I don't often have this. I don't often have a bowl of soup. I don't often make a pan of soup. So if you have soup, you usually have a bowl of soup. What did you eat for lunch yesterday, Bob? I had a bowl of soup. I had 2 bowls of soup. I was really hungry. Oh, where did you have the soup? I had soup at my mom's. She made a pan of soup for everyone. We all visited my mom and she had made a pan of soup. So we all had a bowl of soup. So kind of a measure of quantity. Again, not an exact measure. It's not like 250 grams of soup or 1 liter of soup, but it's the amount that you would eat. We would call it a serving size, actually. And then, of course, this is how you make soup in a pan, and you call that a pan of soup. It's really yummy when you go visit someone, and if they have a pan of soup simmering on the stove, the house is filled with the smell of soup, and it's really, really yummy. By the way, this looks like squash soup. Both of these soups. I do like squash soup. Might be pumpkin soup, but I would probably squash soup, butternut squash. Piece of chocolate, square of chocolate, chunk of chocolate. There are a variety of ways to refer to chocolate. Bar of chocolate if you have the whole thing. But generally, Jen and I, we buy really yummy dark chocolate. We buy dark chocolate with caramel and sea salt. And then we usually eat one piece of chocolate a day. So the bar of chocolate has 8 pieces or 8 squares. And we try to only eat a square of chocolate a day or a piece of chocolate each day. Sometimes it's hard, especially because this chocolate has a bit of salt in it. And when it's hot outside, sometimes you want to eat more, but it's fun to come in and have a little snack to have a piece of chocolate. Hey, this one's going to be a little hard to explain, but something can be a figment of your imagination. Sometimes kids will have an imaginary friend. Their imaginary friend is a figment of their imagination. So it doesn't exist in real life. Let me try to think of what an adult would have. I'm trying to think. Maybe you're expecting your boss to give you 3 weeks off every year, and your boss is like, that's just a figment of your imagination. You get 1 week off. You don't get 3 weeks off. So a figment of your imagination is something you imagine that isn't true. Kids who have imaginary friends, we would say the imaginary friend is a figment of their imagination. So just a few random things. As I was thinking about making this lesson, I was thinking, oh, there's a jar of pickles. I should put that in the lesson. There's a can of beans. I should put that in the lesson. So I have to look what the next one is. There's a basket of peaches. I should put that in the lesson. There's a box of crackers. There's a bag of chips. So let me go back. This is the part of the lesson where Bob looked in his fridge and looked in his cupboards to see what he could find. I don't eat a lot of pickles, but when you buy pickles, they come in a jar. A jar is usually a glass thing like this with a lid on top. If you look in your fridge, you might have a jar of pickles. You might have something else. You might have a jar of sweet peppers. But this is a jar of pickles. Can you get the jar of pickles from the fridge, please? This is a can of beans. A can is a metal cylindrical tin. So I actually like these beans, by the way. I think there's a British influence in Canada because we do eat baked beans. It's pretty common to find baked beans. Even sometimes if you go to a restaurant for breakfast, they might have baked beans, toast, eggs, baked beans, bacon. But this is a can. This is a can of beans. Also, this is not something I found, but I did find a basket of strawberries. But peach season is coming, and it will be nice because at market you can buy baskets of peaches, plural there. But yes, if I was at market and if it was peach season, I might buy a basket of peaches if I'm feeling really, really hungry. I like peaches, by the way. They are very, very yummy. Box of crackers. So here's the tricky thing. Between North America and other English-speaking parts of the world, we use different terms. To me, these are crackers. Crackers are usually flat, salty little wafers, and there's a bunch of different kinds. When you eat a cracker, you might put cheese on your cracker, a little bit of cheese on your cracker. But to me, these are crackers. This is a box of crackers. I think we call them crackers because they make a cracking sound when you bite into them. And this is a bag of chips. This is actually my favorite kinds of chips. I love sour cream and onion flavored chips. I'm not sure if you can get these in other parts of the world, but if you ever come to visit me and want to bring me a gift, bring me a bag of chips. Bring me a bag of sour cream and onion chips. So again, in Canada and in the United States, I think most of the US, we call these chips. I think in British English, they might be crisps, but we call them chips. I think they call French fries chips, don't they? Yeah. Anyways, in Canada, these are chips. They come in a bag. You can buy a bag of chips. Very yummy, very tasty. In my part of Canada, we don't have milk sold this way. We have milk sold this way. But in most parts of the United States and in some parts of Canada, you can buy a gallon of milk. It might actually be 4 liters of milk in some parts of Canada. But in the United States, for sure, you can go buy a gallon of milk. We're out of milk. We need to buy milk. Can you stop at the store and buy a gallon of milk? So when I was in university, I lived in the United States, and we would buy a gallon of milk every 3 or 4 days. We drank a lot of milk. And then here we have, you buy a bag of milk, and inside the bag of milk, there's 3 more bags of milk. So let me make this a little bigger. This is not common in all of Canada. It's just in certain provinces. But in my part of Canada, you buy milk in bags. And inside that blue bag, there are 3 little clear bags, and you have to buy a special little pitcher like this. So you go and buy a bag of milk. Jen might say to me, Bob, can you buy a bag of milk today? We're out of milk, or we're running out of milk. Please buy a bag of milk on your way home. And then I usually forget. No, I don't. Usually Jen tapes a scrap of paper to the steering wheel of the van with a note on it. And then I remember. Okay, so this next segment's going to be a little strange. This is a carton of orange juice. This is a jug of orange juice. This is a pitcher of orange juice. So notice it's still orange juice. And I should say this again, in my part of the English-speaking world, if you went to the grocery store, this is a carton of orange juice. You're going to go buy a carton of orange juice. Or you might buy a jug of orange juice. A carton is kind of like a paper container with, I think it has wax in it so it doesn't leak. And this is more of a plastic container. So I could say to Jen, do you want me to get some orange juice? Yeah, just get a small carton of orange juice or get a big jug of orange juice. Now, some people, when they get home, will put their orange juice into what's called a pitcher. So they will pour the orange juice in here, or maybe they make their own orange juice from oranges, and they would put it in a glass vessel called a pitcher. Vessel? Do I really call it that? It's like a very formal term. What would I call this? I would just call it a pitcher of orange juice. So once again, a carton of orange juice. You can buy a carton of chocolate milk, a carton of orange juice, a carton of lemonade. This is what we call a carton in my part of the English-speaking world. Or you can buy a jug, or you can buy a pitcher. By the way, this was also considered a jug of milk or a gallon of milk. What's next? A set of wrenches. So whenever we talk about something where like there's a certain number of pieces, so you can have a set of wrenches, you can have a set of sockets, with a ratchet. Maybe you're not familiar with that. You can have a set of, I'm trying to think of what else. Let's just leave it with this. So this is a set of wrenches. Notice that these are what I would call imperial. So you can see, I guess SAE is maybe the correct term. They're not metric, by the way. This set of wrenches has 13 wrenches. There are 13 wrenches in this set of wrenches. And they are all the way from 1/4 inch up to 1 inch. Very cool. I need a new set of wrenches. I should buy one. Stack of wood. So whether it is firewood, like on the far picture, or what we would call, well, just wood, we might call this near picture lumber as well. You have a stack of wood. When you go cut firewood, you will create a stack of wood outside of your house, or maybe in the back entrance, and then you will use that firewood. When you buy wood from the wood store, the lumber yard, the wood store. No one says wood store. When you buy wood from the lumber yard, you might come home and stack it, and you might have a stack of wood in the place where you are going to build something. Maybe you have a little project and you have a stack of wood. Here's a familiar one. Everyone, when you wear socks, you usually wear a pair of socks. I need to buy a new pair of socks. I noticed the other day that I don't have a pair of dark blue socks, and I need them for next week because we have a formal event at our school. So I need to buy a new pair of socks. I'm not sure what happened to my last pair of socks. And then if you are someone who does consume alcoholic beverages, I know some of you don't, but if you went to buy beer, you can buy a 6-pack of beer. So a 6-pack of beer would come like this, and it would have 6 bottles in it. Or if you buy it in cans, it would be cans, and you would call that a 6-pack of beer. I don't know why when you have like a very flat stomach with lots of muscle, we call that a 6-pack. So you can say, oh, the guy at the gym can do 100 sit-ups. He's in such good shape, and then he has a 6-pack. So that doesn't mean this kind of 6-pack. It means, like, you know how you can, I don't have one. You know how you can see someone's stomach muscles if they're in really good shape? We call that a 6-pack. And then the last photo, a bouquet of flowers. So this is actually more than one bouquet. Here are several bouquets of flowers. These are actually from Jen's farm, but a bouquet of flowers is basically a bunch of different flowers put together and to look beautiful. So Jen often will harvest her flowers, and then she will use them to make a bouquet of flowers. Very beautiful, very nice.